What makes Colson's comments especially potent is her reputation. She's not a flashy star. She's a respected role player who's built her career on toughness, leadership, and honesty. When someone like her says officiating is undermining the game, it hits harder because she has nothing to gain by stirring controversy. Her words were not about self-promotion, they were about defending the integrity of the sport. Combined with Clark's visible fury, Colson's statements formed a 1-2 punch the league couldn't ignore. A rookie superstar and a seasoned veteran, united in outrage, speaking to the same issue from different angles. That's not just noise, that's a movement. And here's the dangerous truth for the WNBA. When both its youngest star and its seasoned voices are calling foul on officiating, fans stop seeing these incidents as isolated. They start seeing them as evidence of a deeper rot within the league structure. If the WNBA doesn't address this soon, it risks losing trust not just from players, but from the very audience it's fighting so hard to build. One bad call is a mistake. A string of them across an entire season? That's a crisis. What unfolded between the Indiana Fever and Los Angeles Sparks wasn't an isolated scandal, it was merely the latest chapter in what has become a season-long epidemic of questionable officiating across the WNBA. Fans, players, and even coaches have been raising alarms for months, pointing to soft fouls in crunch time, bizarre clock resets, inconsistent enforcement of physical play, and replay monitor delays that drag momentum out of games. If this were just one unlucky night, the controversy would have blown over quickly. Instead, it tapped into frustrations that have been simmering all year. Let's be clear, every professional sport has its share of officiating complaints, but the WNBA's issues stand out because of their frequency, timing, and impact on outcomes. In too many close contests, the referees, not the athletes, have dictated the story. Fans are no longer debating strategy or heroics after games, they're dissecting blown whistles and replay reviews. That is not how a growing league builds credibility. What makes this even more damaging is the perception of bias. When the Sparks were handed multiple lifelines against Indiana, including the infamous 0.1 second inbound, fans weren't just annoyed, they were suspicious. Online chatter immediately pivoted to whether gambling, interests, league narratives, or market-size bias could be influencing decisions. Whether true or not, the fact that so many fans are willing to entertain the idea of corruption signals a massive trust problem. Players have noticed too. Sydney Colson's criticism of how Kelsey Mitchell never gets fair whistles is echoed across rosters. Athletes in Seattle, Chicago, and Dallas have all had their own gripes with officials this season, especially in high-pressure moments. When a league-wide culture of distrust takes root, it doesn't just frustrate, it erodes the very foundation of fair competition. The impact stretches beyond the court. Media coverage of these incidents overshadows the athletic brilliance fans came to see. Instead of celebrating Odyssey Sims' heroics or Aaliyah Boston's dominance, headlines are dominated by officiating blunders. That does long-term damage to the league's brand. For a sport fighting to expand its audience and secure mainstream respect, the optics could not be worse. The WNBA cannot afford this perception. With viewership rising thanks to stars like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and others, this was supposed to be the season of growth, momentum, and breakthrough. Instead, too often, it feels like fans are watching referees with more influence than the players. Until the league enforces accountability, trains officials properly, and ensures transparency in critical moments, every close game will feel tainted. And if that happens, fans may not stick around to find out who truly deserves to win. What happens when you strip a team of its biggest star, key scorers, and essential depth? Normally, it's a recipe for disaster, but the Indiana Fever flipped the script. Heading into Los Angeles, the Fever looked like a team on life support. Caitlin Clark, still sidelined by injury, was unavailable. Sophie Cunningham, one of Indiana's most reliable floor spacers, also sat out. Sydney Colson and Aari McDonald, two guards who normally relieve pressure from Kelsey Mitchell, were in street clothes. On top of that, Lexie stepped onto the court battered and bruised, sporting not one but two black eyes from a collision in the previous game. On paper, this was supposed to be an easy night for the Sparks. A wounded opponent, missing its leader and its depth, traveling across the country, how could Indiana possibly compete? But here's the thing. Sometimes adversity sharpens focus. Instead of crumbling, the Fever rallied. From the opening whistle, they scrapped for every possession, defended like their season depended on it, and refused to let their limitations define them. Every dive for a loose ball, every box out, every hustle play screamed one message: we will not fold. What makes this resilience remarkable is the psychological element. Players know when they're undermanned. They feel the fatigue, they see the empty chairs on the bench. They know the odds are stacked against them. Many teams, in that situation, use it as an excuse to mail in the effort. Indiana did the opposite. They embraced the challenge, carrying themselves with the belief that toughness could overcome talent gaps. The Sparks, meanwhile, looked like a team that expected the win to come easily. They had the healthier roster, the home crowd, and multiple gifts from the referees. Yet, Indiana's persistence kept them off balance. Every time LA looked poised to seize momentum, the Fever answered with grit, whether it was Odyssey Sims slicing through the defense, Aaliyah Boston muscling her way to rebounds, or Lexie Hull gutting through pain to deliver energy plays. This wasn't just a victory in the standings, it was a cultural statement. Indiana proved they're no longer the fragile team of last season. They've grown into a unit that thrives in adversity, where every player is willing to sacrifice for the greater good. Missing Clark and others didn't weaken them, it hardened them. For a franchise still in the early stages of a rebuild, that matters. The WNBA postseason is unforgiving, and injuries are inevitable. But what Indiana showed against Los Angeles is that their identity isn't tied to one player, it's tied to resilience. That's the kind of DNA that transforms a rebuilding team into a perennial playoff force. And perhaps most importantly, it sends a message to the rest of the league. Don't assume the Fever are vulnerable just because they're shorthanded. Even when the roster looks depleted, they've proven they can still find ways to win. And once Clark returns to this hardened, battle-tested group, that's when the rest of the WNBA should start to worry. When the game is unraveling, when chaos takes over, when every whistle feels like a dagger, you don't need a stat sheet superstar. You need a veteran who refuses to blink. Enter Odyssey Sims. For much of the night, the Fever were battered, not just physically by the Sparks' defense, but mentally by the officiating circus. Younger players were visibly rattled by the blown calls and bizarre rulings. The game teetered on the edge of slipping away multiple times, and the Fever desperately needed a stabilizing force. That's exactly what Sims provided. Her impact wasn't just about points, it was about presence. Sims played with a poise that reminded fans why she's lasted so long in the league. When Los Angeles pressed full court, she broke it with composure. When the Sparks tried to bait Indiana into bad shots, Sims slowed the tempo and made sure the Fever got quality looks. And when the refs threatened to completely swing the momentum, she refused to let frustration take over. Instead of barking at officials, she focused on execution. That discipline rippled through the rest of the roster. What if I told you the WNBA's credibility may have taken its biggest hit yet, and it happened in less than 4 seconds of game time? That's not hyperbole. It's the story coming out of Los Angeles after the Indiana Fever's razor-thin 76-75 victory over the Sparks. This wasn't just another close finish. It was chaos, controversy, and a night where referees, not players, nearly dictated the outcome of a playoff-shaping battle. The Fever walked away with the win, but fans across the nation are asking the same chilling question. Was this game nearly stolen by incompetence, or was something more sinister at play? Let's lay out the facts. Indiana led by just 1 point with seconds remaining. The Sparks had possession, the crowd at Crypto.com, arena was electric, and the playoff picture hung in the balance. Normally, these moments define the league by showcasing athletic greatness. Instead, the spotlight shifted to the officials. Whistles blew seemingly at random. The game clock mysteriously reset. Calls were inconsistent contact that looked identical was called on one end and swallowed on the other. Instead of allowing players to settle it, referees injected themselves into the storyline in a way that reeked of bias, or at the very least, a staggering lack of control. For fans, the sequence stretched what should have been 3.9 seconds into an eternity. For the Fever, it became a test of resolve under the most bizarre circumstances imaginable. Each stoppage gifted Los Angeles new life. Each inbound attempt felt like an undeserved lifeline, and each questionable decision chipped away at the trust fans' place in the game's integrity. Indiana head coach Stephanie White could barely hide her disbelief. On the sidelines, Caitlin Clark, injured but watching closely, was visibly furious. Cameras caught her shaking her head, mouthing words that resonated with millions watching. What is going on? When a league allows its officials to overshadow the athletes, it loses more than just credibility. It risks alienating its growing fan base at the very moment women's basketball is breaking barriers of visibility and relevance. Indiana's victory should have been celebrated as a gritty triumph. Instead, it will forever carry an asterisk in the minds of fans who feel robbed of a fair fight. And that raises the question that can't be ignored. If this is how the WNBA's most critical games are officiated, how can anyone trust what's coming in the playoffs? At what point does bad officiating stop being a mistake and start looking like manipulation? That's the question flooding social media after the bizarre closing sequence between the Indiana Fever and Los Angeles Sparks. What was supposed to be a routine finish became a marathon of interruptions, strange calls, and clock controversies that had fans convinced they were watching the script of a rigged sports drama unfold in real time. Here's the play-by-play of the chaos. With under 4 seconds left, Indiana led 76-75. The Sparks needed a miracle, but instead of letting the game's natural flow decide things, referees essentially manufactured opportunities for Los Angeles to steal the win. The clock was reset in ways that defied logic. Fouls were called one moment, swallowed the next. And then came the most baffling decision of all, granting LA a new inbound opportunity with just 0.1 seconds remaining. Let's be clear, 0.1 seconds is not enough time to catch and shoot. It's not enough time to even make a real basketball move. Yet somehow, the officials rewarded the Sparks with another chance, sparking outrage across the WNBA community. This wasn't just a single error. It was a series of events that snowballed into what looked like an intentional attempt to tilt the balance. Each pause extended the game beyond reason, stretching 3.9 seconds of game time into what felt like an eternity. The Fever players, already running on adrenaline and desperation, had to reset defensively over and over again, while Los Angeles, gifted fresh lifelines, kept pressing forward. Even A'ja Wilson, who wasn't even in the game, chimed in on Twitter, hinting at just how strange the officiating looked from a player's perspective. Fans erupted online. Clips of the 0.1 second inbound trended instantly, with thousands labeling the sequence as an embarrassment and proof that WNBA officiating is broken. Others took it further, suggesting gambling interests could be influencing the outcomes, an accusation no professional league wants to hear. The optics were damning. When viewers are left wondering whether they're watching a competition or a production, the integrity of the sport is at risk. And while Indiana survived the storm, the damage is done. It's not just about this one game. It's about the precedent it sets. If officials can blatantly stretch rules in a nationally broadcast matchup, what might happen when the playoffs roll around? Can fans or players trust that championships will be decided by skill and strategy, rather than whistles and stoppages? The Fever deserved better. The Sparks, too, deserved a chance at an honest finish. But instead, the WNBA walked away with yet another officiating scandal that overshadows the brilliance of its athletes. Until accountability is demanded, nights like this will continue to haunt the league's credibility. When the league's biggest star who isn't even playing becomes the face of officiating outrage, you know the problem has gone too far. Caitlin Clark didn't score a single point against the Sparks. She didn't record an assist, a rebound, or even step on the court. Yet, somehow, she dominated the post-game conversation. Why? Because in the heat of the most controversial ending of the season, her visible frustration captured exactly what fans across the world were feeling: anger, disbelief, and exhaustion with WNBA officiating. Throughout the final minute, cameras frequently cut to Clark on the Fever bench. Normally, sidelined players are reserved, clapping quietly for their teammates. Clark was the opposite. She gestured in frustration, shook her head at blown calls, and mouthed words that instantly went viral. What is going on? In that moment, Clark wasn't just a rookie phenom recovering from injury, she was the voice of the WNBA's fanbase, giving raw, unfiltered validation to the outrage bubbling across arenas and living rooms alike. Her influence matters. Caitlin Clark isn't just another player, she's the most visible figure in women's basketball right now. Every glance, every reaction, every word she says is amplified across social media, sports talk shows, and national headlines. When she calls out officiating, it doesn't stay contained to Fever fans. It reverberates through the entire league. Within minutes, clips of her angry reactions were trending on X, Instagram, and TikTok, sparking heated debates about the WNBA's officiating crisis. What makes this moment so important is that Clark's platform magnifies accountability. Fans have long criticized referees, but those voices often fade into the background. When Clark, someone with a global spotlight, echoes those frustrations, the league cannot ignore it. Her visible fury forced commentators, analysts, and even rival fan bases to admit something is wrong here. But her response went deeper than anger. It symbolized leadership. Even while injured, Clark refused to stay silent. She refused to watch her teammates fight through adversity without calling out the injustices stacked against them. That kind of vocal accountability is rare for a rookie, but it's exactly why Clark is more than just a scorer. She's quickly becoming the conscience of the WNBA. The irony? A game she didn't even play in may go down as one of the defining moments of her early career, not because of her stats, but because of her willingness to shine a spotlight on the league's biggest weakness. When the brightest star in the sport is openly questioning the legitimacy of outcomes, the WNBA faces a crisis it can't brush aside. Clark turned a controversial ending into a national conversation, and once again, she proved she's bigger than the box score. When rookies complain, people call it inexperience. But when veterans echo the same outrage, it becomes undeniable. Sydney Colson didn't lace up her sneakers against the Sparks. She wasn't even on the active roster due to injury. Yet, like Caitlin Clark, she became one of the loudest voices in the aftermath of Indiana's chaotic win. And make no mistake, her words cut deep into the heart of the WNBA's officiating problem. While Clark's emotional reaction captured fans' attention, Colson's veteran perspective gave it credibility. She took to social media and interviews to point out the most glaring injustice: the way Kelsey Mitchell, the Fever's scoring leader, rarely gets the foul calls she deserves. Time and time again, Mitchell drives into contact, gets hacked, and walks away with nothing. Against Los Angeles, it was more of the same. And Colson wasn't afraid to say what many players whisper privately: when officials refuse to protect players, it doesn't feel like basketball anymore, it feels like survival. That word survival resonated. Colson framed the issue not as bad luck or tough breaks, but as a systemic failure to enforce fairness and safety. And when a respected veteran with years in the league voices that perspective, it sends a powerful message. This isn't just one night of bad calls. This is a pattern, and players are tired of it. Fans immediately rallied behind Colson's stance, praising her courage to speak out. Other veterans nodded in agreement online, amplifying her message and proving the frustration wasn't isolated to Indiana. The conversation shifted from "did the refs blow it in LA?" to "is WNBA officiating broken beyond repair?" And then came the clutch moments. With the Fever clinging to a fragile lead in the fourth quarter, Sims delivered not just steady ball handling, but dagger shots, mid-range pull-ups, free throws under pressure, and a fearless drive into traffic. She didn't just steady the ship, she sailed it to shore. In a game marred by controversy, Sims gave Indiana exactly what the officials couldn't take away: veteran control. It's easy to overlook the importance of a player like Sims in an era dominated by hype around rookies and rising stars. But nights like this prove her value goes beyond box scores. Younger teammates saw how she carried herself, how she didn't flinch, and how she chose resilience over rage. That lesson can't be measured in points or assists, it's about culture. Perhaps the most telling moment came after the game. While others vented frustration at the officiating, Sims emphasized execution and focus. Her message was clear: control what you can control. That's a mindset that keeps teams from spiraling in adversity, and it's a mindset Indiana desperately needed in Los Angeles. The Fever's victory will be remembered for the officiating fiasco, but within the team, the memory will be different. They'll remember that when the game turned chaotic, their veteran guard rose above it, took command, and showed them what toughness really looks like. And if Indiana makes a deep playoff run this season, don't underestimate the role Sims will have played in shaping their mental toughness for the battles ahead. Strip away the whistles, the chaos, the controversy, and at the core of Indiana's survival in Los Angeles was one undeniable truth: Aaliyah Boston is the heartbeat of this team. From the very start, Boston imposed her presence in ways that went far beyond the box score. Every rebound she ripped away was a message: this is my paint, and you're not welcome here. Against a Sparks front court that tried to muscle her, Boston matched force with finesse, showing why she's already one of the league's most complete bigs, despite being only in her second year. What made her performance even more remarkable was context. Boston knew coming into this game that she would have to shoulder an enormous burden. With Caitlin Clark out, the spacing suffers. With Sophie Cunningham sidelined, outside shooting threats diminish. That means defenses can collapse more aggressively on the interior. Yet, despite double teams, despite constant physicality, Boston never wavered. She battled for second chance points, created passing lanes with her vision, and commanded so much attention that it freed teammates to find openings. Her stat line, while impressive, doesn't tell the full story. Boston controlled the rhythm of the game. When the Sparks threatened to run, it was her defensive boards that killed their fast breaks. When Indiana's offense stagnated, it was her ability to seal defenders and draw fouls that gave the Fever life. In moments where the game could have spiraled, she was the anchor that kept Indiana grounded. But it wasn't just physical dominance. Boston's leadership shone. You could see her huddling teammates after bad whistles, calming younger players, and keeping the energy focused. That maturity, at such an early stage of her career, is what separates her from the average star. She doesn't just play, she leads. In a game overshadowed by officiating disasters, Boston's steadiness was the antidote. She reminded everyone watching why she was the one pick, why she was Rookie of the Year, and why Indiana's future is built around her. The Fever may have been undermanned, but as long as Boston was on the floor, they had a foundation strong enough to withstand the storm. And here's the bigger picture. Games like this are where reputations are cemented. Boston isn't just a promising young star anymore, she's becoming the kind of cornerstone player franchises build dynasties around. If Indiana grows into a perennial contender, history may point back to nights like this, where she carried her team through adversity, proving she wasn't just talented, but unbreakable. 2 black eyes, a swollen face, a battered body. For most players, that's a reason to sit out. For Lexie Hull, it became the fuel to show the WNBA what toughness really looks like. Hull walked onto the court against the Sparks already looking like she had gone 12 rounds in a boxing match. Her face told the story of the previous game's brutal collision, and honestly, no one would have faulted her for resting on the sidelines. But that's not who Hull is. She suited up, strapped in, and played with the kind of energy that transforms a team's spirit. From the opening minutes, Hull's presence was about more than stats. Every loose ball she dove for, every defensive rotation she hustled into, every rebound she fought for, it screamed resilience. She wasn't out there to fill space, she was out there to make a statement: pain will not define me. That kind of visible sacrifice does something intangible for a team. When teammates see a bruised, hurting player refusing to back down, it lifts everyone. Suddenly, fatigue feels less heavy, officiating feels less unfair, and adversity feels more conquerable. Her grit also showed up in key moments. Hull contested shots against bigger forwards, saved possessions with sheer hustle, and provided the defensive edge Indiana desperately needed. She wasn't the leading scorer, she wasn't the highlight reel, but she was the soul of the fight. And sometimes, that matters more than number. For fans watching, Hull embodied the very spirit of Indiana's victory. The Fever weren't the most talented team on the floor that night, they weren't the healthiest. They weren't even given a fair shake by the refs, but they were the toughest, and Hull's battered, unrelenting performance was the proof. In a league that often celebrates flash, Lexie Hull reminded everyone that grit still matters. Her black eyes became more than just battle scars. They became symbols of what this Fever team is becoming: resilient, fearless, and unafraid of the grind. And long after this game is forgotten in the standings, fans will remember the image of Hull, fighting through pain, embodying the essence of a team that refuses to bow to circumstances. It's the kind of performance that doesn't just inspire teammates, it inspires an entire fan base. Some victories are measured in points. This one is measured in survival, and in the seismic ripple it sends through the WNBA playoff race. For Indiana, this wasn't just another win. It was the win that could define their postseason push. Coming into Los Angeles, the Fever were locked in a dogfight for playoff positioning, where every game feels like it weighs double. Dropping this one short-handed, in hostile territory, under bizarre officiating, could have derailed momentum and put serious pressure on the games ahead. But by stealing a victory, the Fever didn't just keep pace, they gained separation. Think about the optics. A team without its superstar rookie, Caitlin Clark, without one of its sharpshooters, Sophie Cunningham, still walks into LA and finds a way to leave with a win. That's not just resilience, it's a statement. It tells the rest of the league that Indiana isn't fragile, that they aren't dependent on one or two names to dictate success. They're deeper, tougher, and more playoff ready than many thought. And let's be clear, the way this game unfolded adds fuel to the fire. The officiating was so chaotic that the Sparks fanbase will likely scream robbery for weeks, but in a strange way, that benefits Indiana. Because sometimes, a team needs a little us against the world narrative to bond tighter. This victory gives them that. The Fever now carry not only the confidence of surviving adversity, but the emotional fire of feeling disrespected and overlooked. That's playoff DNA. Zooming out, this game may be remembered as the night Indiana officially crossed the line from promising rebuild to legitimate contender. They didn't win with star power, they won with grit, with role players stepping up, with veterans steadying the ship, with rookies learning on the fly. That formula, if replicated, makes them incredibly dangerous come playoff time. And don't forget the psychological impact. Opponents watching this game saw that the Fever won't break under pressure, won't be rattled by whistles, and won't fold even when their roster is depleted. That plants a seed of doubt. Come postseason, that doubt could be the edge Indiana needs. So while the standings will reflect just one more win, the truth is bigger. This was a culture win, a resilience win, a playoff win before the playoffs even began. And years from now, when people look back at the Fever's rise, this victory, ugly, gritty, controversial, but unforgettable, may be remembered as the spark that lit their playoff fire.